everyone, and welcome to the British Vogue and Snapchat Redefining the Body exhibition. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look around downstairs yet. If you haven't, please make sure you do after this session. It's really beautiful and really interesting and quite trippy, actually. And the aim of the exhibition, as you may or may not know, is to show how augmented reality is redefining the way we experience fashion and design and just generally changing, you know, the future of fashion. And I found it really fascinating learning loads about it. And this panel specifically is looking at how AR can help when it comes to making the fashion industry more sustainable and reducing the number of returns. And so I'm really excited to have a brilliant panel today, who I'll introduce very briefly. First of all, we have Tori, who is the co-founder and chief executive of Hurr Collective, which is one of Britain's leading online fashion rental marketplaces. You may already have rented from it before. Next up, we have Leanne Elliott-Young, looking fabulous. She is the co-founder and CEO of the Institute of Digital Fashion, and she is a key industry voice when it comes to sustainability in the tech fashion space. And last but certainly not least, we have Sophia Dominguez, who is the director of AR platform partnerships and ecosystems at Snapchat. And me, I'm Otegha Uwagba. I'm a writer and journalist. So welcome. And yeah, I mean, I've just introduced you guys very briefly, but it'd be great if you could just tell us a little bit more about what it is you do and the organizations that you work with.
Sure. Great to be here tonight. I'm Tori, or Victoria if I'm in trouble. I co-founded the Hurr business 3.5 years ago. We run a hybrid fashion rental model. So we combine a peer-to-peer marketplace whilst also powering fashion rental here in the UK for 130 exclusive brand partners and 4 of the biggest retailers here in the UK, including Selfridges and Matches Fashion. So we fully believe that the hybrid model is the most defensible and scalable in the tech space. And we invest heavily in our technology across Hurr.com and our white label SaaS that powers our retailers too.
So hi, I'm Leanne Elliott-Young, CEO and co-founder. So what do we do at IODF? We primarily birthed it as an emblem for change, to see how we could actually imprint and push past some of the pain points of the fashion industry when it comes to diversity, inclusion, also sustainability. We have 6 industry world firsts, and all of them are about, again, how we can push through those pain points. We work in AR, VR, and we also have various digital doubles of ourselves. That was a big moment in the fashion industry. Where we partnered with Daz 3D because we wanted to push past some of the diversity and inclusion issues. So we have a digital double of my co-founder here, Catty Tay, because until that point, you could not describe yourself in anything other than a cis-normative viewpoint. So we really are pushing past some of the gender bias and racial bias of technology right now.
Such an amazing panel of women. I'm Sophia, and I'm the director of AR Platform Partnerships and Ecosystem at Snap. What that means is my team is responsible for growing the number of AR developers who are building with our AR tool called Lens Studio, and then bringing them success building AR on Snap and our respective platforms.
So as I mentioned, we're here today to talk about how augmented reality can reduce overconsumption and reduce returns in the retail space. And before we dive into the conversation, I just want to set the scene with a couple of key statistics on returns in the retail industry. So the return rates for online fashion purchases range from 30% to 50%, compared to 5 to 10% for in-store returns when somebody buys something in store, which is obviously massive. Overall, in 2020, these are US stats, but overall in 2020, consumers returned roughly $428 billion worth of merchandise, or about 10% of total retail sales in the US. So again, that's huge. And, you know, 1 in 3 fashion items are returned in the UK, which costs businesses an average of £20 per return, and overall costs businesses about $7 billion a year in Britain. So obviously returns in fashion are a huge problem for businesses, but they're also a huge problem for the environment. And unfortunately, fashion is one of the world's most polluting industries. And I mean, it kind of brings me on to what you're doing, Tori. And I'd love if you could actually explain, you know, how Hurr works, and specifically what the circular economy is and how the rental marketplace is kind of contributing to improving sustainability in fashion.
Sure. So I think most people are familiar now that the circular economy is the opportunity that digital was 20 years ago for fashion and for retail. So the fashion industry works to give a kind of really dummy guide to the industry on a linear model where we make, take and chuck the garment. So you're buying something, you're wearing it, and then you're throwing it away, and it's going to end up in landfill. What we need to drastically do as quickly as possible is turn that linear model that is a straight line into effectively a circle. And as part of that circular, rental is part of a much wider solution. So it's rental, it's resell, it's all the R's, repair, donation, and it's how we can think about what we call at Hurr the concept of reinventing ownership. So our mission has never been to say to someone, don't buy something new. It's just about investing in pieces that you're going to love and wear year after year, time after time, and being a bit smarter about how you shop. So we see rental as very much part of a solution with circular, and I think we've seen the rapid adoption of resellers already. Rental's the kind of new kid on the circular block. It's a slightly less established market than resellers, but feel hugely excited. In the last 2 years, we've scaled our brand partnerships from 4 to over 130 brands. Last year, we launched 2 brands a week onto our marketplace. So I think that domino effect in terms of brands waking up to not only seeing circular as a tick box sustainability, but as a revenue driver, which is absolutely what rental is and should be within a business, makes me hugely excited for the future of circular.
I'm really curious, actually, because obviously, as you said, rental is still quite fairly new in the fashion industry. What are some of the challenges, I guess, you have when it comes to introducing consumers to it and kind of changing consumer behavior? Because it is, I think, at first a bit to get your head around. People are like, well, I don't own it. And what happens with that? So how have you found that?
Changing consumer behavior takes years. When I started age 25, I thought it would take a couple of months. 4 years later, we're still very much on that journey. What I've learned is the power of a loud voice. So partnering with leading fashion brands, whether that's Ganni or Selfridges, and leveraging their kind of legitimization of a concept has hugely helped speed up that consumer behavior and that consumer shift. We have 2 barriers. They were the same 4 years ago when I started as they are today. One is what happens if it doesn't fit. The other is what happens if I damage the dress. If I had £1 for every time I was asked those questions, I'd be a rich woman. And on the size of fit, that's where I think the AR side of what we're going to be talking about today is a key solution that we're really excited about. And then on returns rate, we have a super low damage rate, and there is nothing that we can't get out of a rented dress. So we feel very confident about what those 2 blockers are, and that we focus heavily in-house about how we can basically provide solutions to our customers that are innovative, exciting, to address those 2 problems of size, fit, and damage.
And we're definitely going to get onto how AR and try-on tech can help with that. But just really quickly, Leanne, I'd love if you could just explain to us how the Institute of Digital Fashion works with brands and consumers to kind of work towards a more sustainable fashion industry.
Yeah, so for us, we really are looking at how we could model the system. And to your point, when me and Katy founded the Institute, we were like, okay, we'll really, we see like there's some fundamental problems in the industry, ones that you were highlighting yourself. So we're like, okay, well, let's just look at how we can shift those models and re-imprint them. At that point, we had some really big, bold statements, but luckily for us, COVID hit. So all of a sudden, all of the conversations that we were having, which were quite empty at that point, they were the only solutions that anyone could have in the fashion industry to showcase and to storytell. So we were like, okay, let's jump on this. Let's double up and double down and make sure that the brands that we're working with actually care about the ethos points that we are bringing to the point of the conversation. So how can we not just deliver a PR stunt, but actually talk to them about the vocabulary of their brand when it comes to sustainability and look at reshaping the model? So I'll give a prime example of one of the companies that we worked with, H&M. You probably wouldn't say we'd look like a company that would work with a fast fashion company like H&M, but they came to us with a really honest problem, like, how can we solve the sustainability issues? We don't want to be greenwashing. We actually want to try and like push through. So we were like, okay. So stepping into the metaverse is one of the things that IUDF deliver. We're famed for bringing brands into the metaverse futures. So what is the metaverse? So effectively, it's a multitude of constellation points that are digital. So that can be anything from the Zoom call, from the Instagram live that's occurring here, from Snap technology and AR, to an augmented reality avatar version of yourself. How does that tackle the sustainability points of the fashion industry? Well, it means that you can storytell in a multitude of different ways, but primarily it's about having creative freedom and expression to effectively build. So we work with digital fashion designers. So we see the opportunity as a way to really express yourself beyond the parameters of our physical arena. So there's an amazing opportunity there.
And are these designers who work specifically and only in digital fashion, or is it kind of people who design for, I guess, the real world, if I can call it that, and also design?
So we see that there's two different touch points. There's the Gen Z natives, which are custom to all of these conversation points, which are designing for the metaverse, which is designing for digital and designing for AR. And then there's the physical fashion designers that want to pivot into that space to solve some of their sustainability issues. Right now, that pivot point is teetering, because we have amazing technologies which you can try on garments and dance around in them. One of our world's first is throughout lockdown, Fashion Week was shut. So effectively, it became a digital website which designers could showcase flat images. So we took a designer, supported them philanthropically, and took over all the billboards around London and fly posts, and effectively you could wear their garment, dance, spin, and kind of like be alive within it. So they had a real fashion moment, but only purely in digital fashion.
And it's interesting because that's exactly what I want to get onto, is how AR and how try-on technology specifically can be used within a retail and fashion context in quite practical ways. And I know this is something that Snap is working on, Sophia. So could you tell us, I've seen like a couple of examples.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit more about that?
I think, and just to tie it back to H&M very quickly, because we also have a relationship with them, and they recently put a mirror in their COS store in London. So if anyone wants to go check that out.
How does that work?
So if you go in front of the mirror, then they have just various digital garments that you can try on.
So instead of getting out of the clothes I've put on and putting on,
and it's definitely like more experimental, but I think you start to see more and more mirrors like you saw downstairs. It be able to provide you this sort of experience where you don't have to try on clothing. Everyone knows how cumbersome going into the dressing room, like, and dressing, et cetera, et cetera. But just to bring it back to like YAR, there's over 100 million people today who are already using augmented reality and growing, right? To use augmented reality to experience what that means to try on virtual clothing. And in fact, like 1 in 4 people actually would prefer to use augmented reality than actually like going in store or like shopping, et cetera, et cetera. So that number is only growing. The industry is only going to get larger and larger. Right now, like we're at the very beginning of this industry, and ultimately it's like thanks to people like Leanne who are really spearheading and educating brands on like what's entirely possible. And I think we're still in that innovation phase when it comes to experimenting with mirrors in stores, or like getting all the different shoe models to then launch in a lens and then experience how try-on can work. But people are using it, and that's exactly how the direction of how people want to shop, because it's just so much easier because of the return rates, right? Like you order things from a website, usually they don't fit. And so augmented reality can definitely change that. And there's definitely a lot of technical innovations that we need to do to really get to like true size and true fit. Like I want to know what a small looks on me. I want to know how a large looks on me. But those are just areas that Snap is heavily investing in, and because of just the impact that it can have for the world.
And Tori, I'm curious as well, is that something that's exciting for you? Because you were saying one of the key, I guess, issues you have or pain points as a business is, what if it doesn't fit? And even though you're rental, I think with any kind of retailer buying stuff, when people buy stuff, if they have to send it back, it's a pain for everyone involved. And so I'm wondering where you see yourself using AR potentially within the future of your business.
Yeah, I think even though it's a fairly new technology, increases to AOV, and conversion rates have already started to be shown, and anything that's going to give me a higher AOV or higher conversion rate, I'm all ears. So absolutely, we are going to be launching our first ever AR filter very shortly, which we're very, very excited about. Anything we can be doing to help customers, not only over the barrier for rental, but over the barrier of fit and style. We see rental as basically the key form of discovery before that person might go on to buy. So this Ganni top that I'm wearing, how amazing would it be if I could try that on via an AR filter before I either rented it or then bought it? I think there's huge scope for that. And the second area that we're looking quite closely at is we're always trying to kind of trend predict. So we have quite a cool part of our business where we're taking bookings up to 4 months in advance. So I can tell you now what Victoria is wearing in, say, April, May to a wedding, say. So because we have hundreds of thousands of data points about what customers want ahead of time, we're really excited about the opportunity of using AR to kind of predict demand. So our top rented item over Christmas was the Saloni bow dress. I'm sure most of the women in this audience have probably seen it online. And how cool would it be if we could do that at scale in a way where people could test and trial that style, and then we could capitalize off the back of that demand. So that's an area that we need to chat about.
I just wanted to also say that in the production, that's a big point that digital can really save, not only just time, but actually give much more creative freedom to the designer. And we found that particularly within COVID, which is when we launched our IRL URL Academy, lots of the current educational schools and platforms, they're in some way quite elitist, and we were kind of locked on to do an hour or so lessons on how to digitally innovate when it comes to AR, etc. But the big learning trajectory for us was for designers that, the emerging category in London, the innovators of the fashion industry were a bit flummoxed as to, they had Brexit as well, like what were their minimum orders, how to get fabrics. With amazing softwares like Clothes 3D, it means on the production space, a small designer, on a laptop or in their home, their studio, can actually see a toile in several different fabrics. So from a stiff leatherette to a silk organza at the click of a button. Wow. So those are the kind of things for sustainability. It means that you can work through what the possibility, or measure all the fabric, know exactly how much you need to get that silhouette.
Making fewer prototypes as well.
Absolutely.
Samples.
Yeah, totally. And those kind of mechanisms of learning in the digital arena allows them to also make creative decisions, which are really exciting. And again, that pivots to AR. We've now seen lots of designers are designing an AR, which is a coding system. It doesn't use the sophisticated gravity simulating software of Clothes 3D, but actually designing not just aesthetically, but actually clothes to fit the body based on the kind of algorithmic and coding that exists within amazing softwares like Snap. So it really is changing the way that people create from a studio level that solves all of that sustainability issues in the studio.
And just to add one thing, I think Holly yesterday, who was on the panel, said that they're using augmented reality to reduce their production process by 80%.
Yeah.
And they want to do that in the next year. So it's just really incredible once you start to learn the tools and like visualize exactly like what the experience can be, like using augmented reality to try on the clothing that you actually may go produce. It's completely game-changing.
I'm quite curious, actually, because Leanne, earlier we were talking backstage about how what you're doing is hoping to make fashion more inclusive, whether it's in terms of body inclusivity, racially. And I'm always very conscious that when these kind of new technologies are being developed, and it's also a question for you, Sophia, is we have to think about who we're including, who's creating it, what are the ethical considerations behind it. I think we've all seen a lot of tech developed in the past decade, 2 decades, where maybe that has been an afterthought. And people have, suffered as a result. So I'd love to understand what you both think.
I mean, that's why we're quite like fierce. So we make sure the team has the same ethos as us, and make sure that anybody who's building an avatar, say, to replicate somebody from a specific cultural background, at the chorus of individuals that are involved whilst that modeling's occurring. And I think that transparency is a big thing with sustainability, but also within workforce and HR, and program bias is one of the biggest issues in technology, as we've all seen in recent press. And I really think that with the AI and the momentum in that space, we have to pull back and really calculate and calculatively work out who is feeding those algorithms and make sure that we can erase the bias, which is also proven that you can deliver. So it's something that we really stand by. We're quite hard about that, like who's in the team, who's making these assets. When you talk about different body types, well, is this a tick box, or are you actually in this discourse with us? And can you put your money where your mouth is? We ask that quite a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to Leanne's point, it's all about like the team that you build. And so something at Snap that we think very thoughtfully about is like how we're constructing our review teams, our QA teams, our moderation teams. And so that we're building the technology and all of this, like every single lens on the platform has to go through our systems. And so as our systems are being created, as technology is being created, we're making sure to like update the review team, the moderation team, the policy team with any sort of changes. So I think a really great example of that is when we rolled out the 3D body mesh. When you rolled it out, it wasn't just for one body type. Like it automatically scales. So your garment automatically can like scale to all these different body types. And that's just something that we are very proud of. And it's also something as we start to invest more heavily in shoe size and things that's like, how does a small look on you and medium, et cetera, that we have to be very thoughtfully about that as well.
And that's really imprinted on the physical fashion industry to see the level of inclusion. Mm-hmm. The fact that somebody doesn't have to like look, scrolling through e-com or going to a store and ask for their size automatically with this sophisticated AR. The mesh means that it fits your body. So you're seeing lots of people really enjoying the kind of the AR experience like over the physical fashion, because there's none of those kind of like ugly moments where, does it fit me? Hand raise. It's that. That was such a big moment when that happened. Everyone was like, ah. It was so good. Yeah.
Super cool. I think we've got time for just one more question, and then I am going to open things out to the audience. If anybody's got questions for the panel, please start thinking. But I guess the thing that I want to know is, from each of you, what excites you most about the AR space and the future of AR when it comes to fashion? I'll start with maybe you, Sophia.
Okay. Okay, mine maybe is like a little future out there because I think we covered a lot about the practical capabilities and potential for today. But something that I think about a lot is in the future when we're all wearing glasses, and hopefully it's not a too far distant future, what sort of garments will also be augmented on you every single day, right? So like right now we're wearing a lot of black, but imagine, I have my favorite color is iridescent. And so like I've customized some sort of iridescent thing that you can only see with these glasses. And I think like that opens up whole new opportunities for the future of fashion. That again, talking back to sustainability, et cetera, like that has nothing to do with like producing physical garments or anything like that. And I'm really excited about what creativity and self-expression will be unleashed through that avenue.
Yeah, I think like future gazing, everyone's waiting for the glasses. Like, unfortunately, these aren't AR.
I was going to ask.
You're all in black and leather. But I think that, the exciting positioning point is that when we live in a time where the semantics of fashion have changed, so it becomes much more about the sense of our times. Like, what does it mean to be when fashion isn't about physicality, but perhaps the starting point is a physical garment or a physical object, and then your creative expression, your storytelling is kind of loaded into that. And what does it mean for like creative collaboration in the augmented reality space? I remember going to a VR conference like 10 years ago in Vegas, and it was so exciting, but it was all these lonely experiences. And I feel like that's why at IODF we believe so much in AR, because they're collective, they're collaborative experiences. It's the physical and digital, the IRL and URL whirling around one another, and that's really poignant. And I think for like humanity, these joint experiences are so valuable. It's not a silo into another metaverse. It's actually just within the context of our reality. So what does it mean when those realities are even more dual and you can, express one another collaboratively? I think that's so exciting.
I guess for me, what makes me so excited is the pace of change. We were having this conversation backstage too, that 4 years ago when we both started our businesses, sustainability was quite a niche topic. I think people had a kind of stereotype that it was going to be a girl wearing a hemp dress. And actually we've come so far in a very, very short space of time. And I always say, whenever I'm in the room with important C-suite people, that we don't want change in 2028 or 2038. We want change now, and how quickly can we get things moving, whether that is incorporating AR into our businesses and fashion, whether that is adopting circularity as quickly as possible. The time for change is now. We all know how bad the stats are on fashion. So what gets me most excited is about the kind of partnership model where big retailers can come to us or brands can come to us, and really overnight we can start trying to solve some problems for them. So I think that partnership and then big brands that can help us move the dial, giving us the opportunity to help them is hugely, hugely powerful.
I just wanted to say at the Fashion Week, last Fashion Week, last season, we launched a big campaign, and it asked through augmented reality and physical billboards and a big electric van that myself and Katy and the whole team marched alongside. It asked at the end of the world, do you need more clothes? And I think that's like a real big question. We are in a social, political, economic crisis right now. Do we need more clothes? And what are the value systems of fashion that we can bring into this augmented, digital, still physical, human relationships to service our need for newness and our need for creative expression? I think that's just what we have to ask everyone. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, speaking to you three has made me feel very optimistic about the future of the fashion industry. That's all we have time for, really. So if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to come up and have a chat with our lovely, I was about to say contestants, panelists. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you to Snap and Vogue for hosting us. And most of all, thank you to our lovely panelists.
Thank you.